Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade. I'm James Eade, and I don't know if I can honestly say that I'm calm today. It's election day, and we're going to talk about some of the strategies I'm using to remain calm. But people don't like it when you tell them to calm down when they're upset and anxious. So what we do is try to figure out the tools and techniques that we can use before we get anxious or upset. And so then we know what to do when we do become anxious. And so the idea of calming down is to learn how to do it, how you can relax your body. The body can relax the mind can relax the body. So we have a couple of episodes and segments of this show that one is to talk about the gripes that we're having, that at least one person is having. Our senior anger correspondent from Los Angeles, Rick Rosner, will be in the first segment. And then we'll have a yoga teacher, Yudhisthira, who will come on and tell us some of the tools and techniques of yoga and some of the teachings that have been their ancient wisdom that's available to us today to help us learn how we can remain calm even when the storms of life are swirling around us. We can remain centered in the calm in the eye of the storm. And this isn't something that I learned overnight. This took a lot of practice for me because being calm is not necessarily an easy thing to do. But when you are calm, when others around you are anxious, they pick up on the vibe you're sending out. And if you're calm, it is amazing how it can have a calming effect on others. So rather than telling them to calm down, you can lead by example and be calm when others have anxiety or others are upset. You can remain calm and be a voice. And just your presence alone can be helpful, but only if you yourself know how to make yourself feel calm. And on election day, it's been extra duty for me, extra work, because, these types of things like what course will the country, I can go round and round, run circles around in my mind and obsess on it if I allow myself to. But the first stage is awareness. You have anxiety, anxiousness, anger, those A's, but awareness is the capital A. If you're aware that you're nervous or anxious or upset, you have the ability to reach into your toolbox. And these are the tools that we're giving you on this show. Hopefully that will work for you. Because what works for me, which is a deep breath, calming. I can feel my shoulders drop a quarter of an inch from my ears. And what works for me may not work for you. Find what works for you. But I have an ulterior motive. I want you to buy this book, Freedom by James Eade. And it's your path to recovery. Because one of the things when you're suffering from addiction, all varieties of addiction, any variety, then it's essential that you know how to calm yourself down. And you realize that, hey, you might get anxious, but you don't need to ingest a foreign substance to make you feel differently. And it's okay to feel the way you feel. Feelings are impermanent. They do not last forever. So have confidence that if you're upset now, if something is upsetting you, it will pass. You will be fine. There's nothing you need to do other than to relax. And easier said than done, unless you know how to make yourself relax. So I hope you enjoy the show, because this first segment with Rick from LA is going to be about the agitation that we're feeling around these election times. And then Yudhisthira is going to come down and tell us some of the yoga techniques. We're going to concentrate on chakra 2 today. And then Divya is going to take us out, as she always does. So thank you for watching, and always remember, it's season 6, it's episode 6 in season 2, and you can find this on airu.tv. All episodes that are previously recorded will be available to you there. Thank you. Namaste. Hi, welcome to episode 6 of season 2. And this segment is with our senior anger management consultant, Rick Rosner. Now, Rick, how are you today?
Hey, sorry, I just woke up. I'm trying to sleep from now until after the election.
3 days from now, you'll be able to know who won.
Yeah, I wake up only to do anti-Trump tweets.
Okay, I understand. So I assume today we're going to continue to talk about the election because it's still, I don't think I'm going to be myself until after we.
Right. There's a Yiddish word, I think it's verklempt, like Mike Myers used to say it in Coffee Talk on SNL. I think that's the right word.
It's a word.
Where you're a little bit like scattered and
out of sorts.
Yeah. And so, so I don't have any like clever gripes. My gripe is, the tens of millions of Americans who still can't see that Trump is a bad guy and he's bad for America.
Well, his closing arguments are embarrassing. And my sense of what I'm reading is that the people who are making up their minds in the last days, and why would it take you till now to make up your mind? I don't know. But they seem to be moving towards Harris because they're tuning in at this late stage and they're seeing what Trump is like because he's not hiding it and his campaign can't help it. They talk to him, but he just continues to say
why would a guy, especially a guy who goes around, touting his manliness, pretend to give his microphone a blowjob?
And the way he dances?
Well, too. That's the dance you do when you don't really have any moves.
Okay.
But he's so Trump's dad started showing signs of dementia in his late 70s. Trump turned 78 and a half in December. Was officially diagnosed at age 86, his dad, with Alzheimer's. And whether or not Trump has early dementia, he seems kind of just random, falling apart. And, he was president during 2020, the worst year in American history since 1862, you could argue. More dead people by far than in any previous year, and more jobless Americans than in any other year before or since. And people who like Trump will say, well, that was COVID. And then you have to come back and say, and they still won't buy it. They don't buy anything. Is he fired our pandemic preparedness team in 2018.
Yeah, there was no need for them. But I remember it very clearly being dismayed at that outcome. Yeah. And also he blamed Obama for not giving him a vaccination for a yet to be discovered illness. COVID was a new thing, and there's no way that anyone could have prepared for it.
No, also people say, well, COVID was bad every place. And I just saw some statistic. I haven't had a chance to make sure that I read it right or verify it, that the U.S. has 4.2% of the world's population, but we had 19% of the world's deaths.
Well, I think it's clear that his response to it was ineffective. Well, it was actually his response was to deny it. I can remember him going on stage and saying, 15 people have COVID. It's going to disappear.
It's going to go to zero. 15 have it, it'll go to zero.
Right.
And so it probably will. It will go to zero. Well, actually, it may not, because this is year 5 and it's still going strong. But maybe in 2047 it'll go to zero.
Yeah, and the idea, we're still getting. We always get flu shots, and and now we're always getting COVID vaccinations, and I don't see that stopping in the near future. You
No,
know,
so right now it is a good time to be out and about. It's at COVID nationwide, and where I am in Los Angeles, and I assume where you are up in the Bay Area, it's at its lowest levels since the summer lull. So you get two spikes a year. You get the end of summer, early fall spike, which we're done with, and then it drops down till about Halloween, and then it starts heading back up again, and we're still in the middle of that. And it's the lowest lull. It's the lowest October lull in the past 3 years. So that's good.
but these COVID, the COVID virus itself has variants, and so getting an up-to-date vaccine is still advised, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had 8, and I'm still not stupid. I mean, I was not stupid when I decided to get them, and the vax hasn't made me stupid.
And
COVID will make you stupid. Trump almost died of COVID, and there's been a study that suggests that COVID, bad enough to get you in a hospital, will age your brain. It's the equivalent of 20 years of brain aging.
Wow, that's shocking.
If that's the case, Trump has a 98-year-old brain.
Right. That seems to be in evidence. Although, campaigning is hard and it's taking its toll. And this would have been true, was obviously true for Biden as well. Both of them were too old to be, they're going to be in Trump would be in his 80s his last.
Trump is 5 months older than Biden was when Biden was elected.
Right.
So if you think Biden was too old, then that goes for Trump too.
Right. Yeah, and it's not ageist to say this. I mean, the job of the presidency is ages everyone who's in it that takes it seriously. Obama looked very young going in and older, much older going out. So I just think it's a tough job, and so you want someone a little bit more robust, just for their own sake as well as the country's sake. But that's beside the point in terms of his love for dictators, and his me first attitude about everything. And also you mentioned his dad. I think Trump was born on third base and thought he'd hit a triple, and then his dad paid the ump to call a balk on the pitcher.
Well, the Trump family, they've been doing tax avoidance tactics for decades.
If you paid taxes, you were a loser. Yep.
So Trump's dad's estate was, I don't know, worth about $1 billion, and the family systematically. So what they do is when they want to get a loan, they exaggerate how much their properties are worth, so they have a lot of collateral. Then when they have to pay taxes, they underestimate. And the New York Times a couple of years ago did a story that showed that the Trump family avoided $450 million in inheritance taxes by lying, undervaluing their properties.
And like you say, when they're overvaluing them to get a loan, the Trump apartments in his tower were much bigger than they actually were, and all of those types of
and
things.
the difference in value is not just a little bit. Like if you're applying for a credit card, maybe and as they ask, how much do you make a year? And they don't check, and maybe you don't know exactly, so you name a number, and it might be, you might say, oh, I make 150 grand. Nobody's gonna come after you for doing that. But the Trumps, the difference between the claimed value of a building, and the difference for getting a loan and its value for paying taxes, they might differ tenfold.
All right, and we're not talking about rumors or opinions here. They were found in a court of law to be fraudulent.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, this is the kind of thing, it's gone before juries. The juries have all found them guilty and they've been
Well,
sentenced.
so
They have to pay fines,
when
staggering
people
fines.
when people who defend Trump say, "Oh yeah, well you say he's such a bad guy and such a criminal," and yeah, he's gotten on the wrong side of 8 juries in the past year, 5 grand juries, 2 rape juries, 1 fraud jury, and they say, yeah, but this didn't happen. It did. He's been in court, his whole freaking life, involved in 4,900 lawsuits.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of them were, I guess you have to be in the lawsuit business if you're in the casino business, which he was. You have to sue the people you give credit, and then they don't want to pay. So a lot of them were that, but still, that leaves thousands of other lawsuits of people wanting to get paid.
What about the laborers? He stiffed his laborers.
Right, and he would use illegal immigrants because it was harder for them to fight for the wages he stole from them.
And even if you sued them, if you had standing and could sue, and you sued him, he would sue you back and claim that the workmanship was shoddy.
Right, and his standard tactic would be, I don't know if anybody was ever able to get the money up front from Trump. In Albuquerque recently, he was supposed to, have a rally, but they wouldn't let him off the tarmac because he still owes Albuquerque $440,000 from some previous rally, and they wouldn't give him a police escort. He was stuck at the airport. But his deal would be, they make a deal, and then the contractor comes back and says, the architect says, all right, you need to pay up, and Trump says, I'm not gonna pay you, and sue me. And it goes back and forth, and eventually Trump says, look, I can afford endless litigation.
Yeah.
It'll cost you years and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'll give you a third of what we agreed to.
Exactly. And people have to settle.
Yeah, and this has been going on for frickin' ever.
How can anyone in the working class vote for this guy when, your brothers and sisters have been ripped off like that?
Yeah, so when does this show come out?
Tomorrow, 2:00 tomorrow.
All right, 2:00. You still have hours to get to the polls. Turnout wins. Get to the polls. Take your mom, take your kids, take randos you see on the street on the way to the polls. You can also, your ride I just read on Twitter that your ride is free courtesy of the NAACP. If there's a code that you can use to get a $20 Lyft ride to your voting place and a second ride back home.
Well, it's funny to me, not funny in a ha-ha way, that the Republicans are so trying to depress the vote in so many states. And, this is just a sign that they don't trust the voters. If enough people voted, they wouldn't win. And they know that, so they try to suppress the vote.
Yeah, well, the good news is, the bigger the turnout, the more likely it is Democrats win. And it was a huge turnout with 158.5 million voters in 2020. And they made it, most of the states made it easy to vote because of COVID. Vote by mail, lots of early voting. This time around, about 83 million people have already turned in their ballots. We're talking the day before election day right now, and that is very close. It's going to end up being very close to what the early voting was in 2020, and we may even beat 2020 for overall turnout.
Right.
Which is.
So, do you think the Supreme Court, even though they did a horrible thing in the Roe, not following the precedents of Roe, in my opinion, but I think it's helping turnout. I think it's mobilizing.
Yeah, no, I do, and there's some question on the ballots. So in 12 states, there's a question on the ballot that pertains to abortion. So that's a quarter of the country.
And it seems to be even Kansas, deep red states have voted to preserve the rights, women's rights in elections, and I think the majority of Americans believe in that. And so I think if that is a big issue, and I think, after the economy, that is probably the biggest issue people are voting on. And I wish people were more informed about the economy, because the economy has been fantastic in the last 4 years, despite what Trump is doing. Trump is continuously lying about it. Unemployment is down.
Yeah.
Wages are up.
That's one of the biggest. If you had to have a gripe about the Democrats, it's terrible, terrible messaging.
Always. Yeah. We've always said that, and we've always been disappointed in that. Yeah.
It's like one of those movies, high school movies, where the nerdy star of the movie is trying to get a girlfriend from the 70s and 80s, and the nerdy guy looks around and says, I'm a good guy, I'm nice, and he sees like the jocks be mistreating their girlfriends and being just jerks in general, and and by the end of the movie, like some super hot girl has noticed what a good guy this nerdy guy is, and he gets a girlfriend, or he loses his virginity. Yeah, that doesn't freaking work like that.
Yeah, that's the movies, man. That's not in our lives.
And there was one movie that got it right, called Lucas, which is about a nerdy kid who falls in love with a girlfriend of a football player. And by the end of the movie, the girl is like, come on, man, it's not going to happen. And the boyfriend, the football player, turns out to be a nice guy and is like, yeah, you're a good guy, and we like you, but she's with me. And like, we're constantly expecting to get brownie points for goodness.
Yeah, and not all jocks are bad people. Come on.
No. It was so. The deal is, I resented jocks all through junior high, but when I finally was, I was a mess. Like, I was not somebody you would want to date through junior high and high school. But when I started like getting my shit together, and started dating girls, by this time I was working in a bar, bouncing, and I would talk to the jocks. Like, there was one of my classmates who also worked in the bar, and he was a jock, and I'd go to him for advice because he'd been dating girls since he was 14.
Right. Yeah. And I have to say, a lot of them had the typical insecurities, and they had defense mechanisms surrounding them, and which we interpreted as being jerks. But when you got to know them, they were decent human beings all through and through. And
yeah, there's the MVP of the World Series, Freddie Freeman. They interviewed his dad.
Oh, yeah.
His dad said, yeah, we would play catch together. And he said, not because I was like a tiger dad who was trying to turn him into a major athlete. It's just something we did together. And I hoped that he would, be good enough to, be on a team so he'd have friends to ride on a bus with back and forth from sporting, from the games.
Yeah. Yeah. And sports can do a lot for you. Like I argued with my father to let my younger brother play sports in high school because he was good at basketball, mostly because he was such a wise ass, and he would mouth off, and I would have to intervene so he didn't get beat up, and but hanging around other guys like that, taught him. Can't just mouth off anytime you feel like it. There are consequences.
I have a theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but I think doing junior high sports, middle school can stop you from being a pervert. Because I was bad at sports and PE, and I stayed inside and I read, and all my friends did. I was friends with all the nerds, and we read, and we encountered a lot of material. including like Playboy magazine and Naked Lady playing cards. And we were reading grown-up books, and we read sex scenes.
Yeah.
We were
Henry Miller. Yeah.
we were horny I started jerking off when I was 9.5. And that's super too early.
That's record breaking.
And it's like, so it was more than 10 years before I lost my virginity to an actual person.
Mhm.
That's way too long. But if I'd been doing, I saw my brother, my brother, different dad, much taller, great basketball player. He was obsessed with basketball. He didn't, I think that delayed him thinking about girls for 3 years after me, till, if you have sports to distract you, you're not going to notice, like, I mean, now everything's different because we're just swimming in porno. Back then, it was, but
there's good fantasy and there's bad fantasy. You know?
but nobody should be horny at 9.5.
That's true.
And so, like, if you're doing sports, maybe you don't get horny till you're 12 because you're distracted by all this activity, which is good. Then you only have to, and if you're a cool sports guy, maybe that you only have to wait a year to get a girlfriend instead of a freaking decade. So I guess that's a gripe that I got horny too early.
Yeah. And, I'm not sure the cause and effect of it all, but, physical activity is an outlet. And it's a healthy outlet. It's good for your health. It's good, for your camaraderie and, fitting in, that sort of thing. And
so I just came up with another gripe.
Yeah.
Which is I was the oldest sibling.
Mm-hmm.
Older. How about you?
No, I was a middle child. Yeah.
And with that, I'm sure you got a lot of crap from your older brother.
Well, my older sister was she was the eldest in the family and the children, and she was a piece of work.
And so, like, she worked you over, but also you had her to look at to see what was cool and what wasn't, right?
Well, that's true. And her friends were cool.
Yeah. So
her friends were hot.
Yeah. So you learned from that, and it also gave you an objective. And I was the oldest. I didn't have anybody to tell me. Like, I needed somebody, an older sibling or myself, to travel back in time and say, get over your hatred of sports. Like, try to get good at stuff and try to go get on teams. It's not whether you like the sport, it's what it'll help you socially. But I was
the only thing is chess isn't the best outlet for that.
No,
I got into chess to meet girls, but I was misinformed.
Yeah, I assume chess is a sausage party.
Pretty much. It was in my day. Yes. So it's wonderful now. There's so many young girls participating in it all over the country. It's wonderful to see, but it wasn't my experience.
So in the 80s, Playboy magazine did a pictorial, The Women of Mensa, which was women with high IQs showing their boobs. I'm like, now by this time I'd been lifting weights for a while, and I had abs and everything. I'm like, well, Playgirl magazine, they're just going to copy them. So I joined Mensa thinking Playgirl was going to do the men of Mensa, and that a lady would see me naked in the magazine, I'd get a girlfriend. So there were a lot of bad assumptions with that. Yes. A, Playgirl never did that. Right. B, Playgirl was mostly for gay guys. But I did end up joining Mensa, and I was...
Men are more visually oriented, yes.
Yeah, I was thinking that, maybe at Mensa I'll meet like a girl who's into high IQ guys. No, it's all guys. It's like 95% guys.
Yeah.
And mostly blowhards.
Yeah.
Because if you're desperate enough to join Mensa, to have something going for you,
you want attention,
and you might have be bad at interacting with people.
Right. And these social interactions, they can be taught. You can learn how to do it. The nerds that I hung around with, we weren't good at it except for with each other. We understood it. We had Groucho Marx jokes in common, and we had, lots of stuff in common. So, but then we were tongue tied around people that weren't nerdy.
Yeah, if that kind of thing ends up with you doing improv, then maybe you get saved.
Right.
I accidentally saved myself by working as a bouncer in bars, as a doorman, because I ended up meeting 750,000 people. And so I learned how to at least casually talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it can be taught to just about anyone, unless you're suffering through something like autism, but if you're, even if you think of yourself as a nerd, you can learn social skills.
Right.
And one of the things, sorry, go ahead.
Even if you're autistic, like Temple Grandin, somebody can teach you, or you can figure it out yourself, mirroring. You can, which is, okay, so you don't react normally or, well, neurotypically to other people.
Right.
But if you're smart and on the spectrum, you can be like, well, I can watch other people and figure out how they react, and I can fake it.
And one of the things I learned, I married into a family of writers and editors, which makes me afraid to write a thank you note. But they also, they ask people questions. So I'd be around them and we would meet someone new, and the reporters ask questions, and people would start to like them because they were interested in you. And I was observing this and saying, holy cow, I never asked people questions. So I started to do it. It was amazing.
And that's red flag, green flag number one on a date is, if you want to do well on a date, you ask your date what's up with her.
All right. Yeah. And I could have used that in high school.
Oh yeah, I could have used everything. But we've been going 27 minutes.
Okay, Rick. Well, thank you for telling us. We started with just the election, but we got into other things that were part of our psychological makeups. And the thing is that we can calm down. We don't have to be trapped in whatever our circumstances were, whatever the programming we experienced, whatever the defense mechanisms they served at a time, but they no longer serve. Let them go, and just be yourself and be happy with yourself.
And God, or whatever version of God or not God you believe in, be with us during this time of turmoil.
All right, Rick. Thanks again. Namaste.
Too.
I'll take you off back on stage. And that was our senior anger management, Rick Rosner. I wanted to let you know that if you want to see other versions of this, this is season 2, episode 6, but go to airu.tv and you can see past episodes, past videos. And if you want to contact us, just info@airu.tv. I'll be glad to take your questions, be glad to incorporate some of your concerns, whatever they are. I'm certain between Rick and I, we've experienced them, or we have some ideas about how you can calm down. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Hello. Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Calm Down with James Eade. This segment of the show is dedicated to yoga practices that can help us calm down. And the more we understand about our body, the better we can be in control of our emotions and our ability to remain calm. Because when we are calm, we make better decisions. Life seems to go a little bit easier if we aren't all riled up all the time. So I don't know enough to teach this, but I know someone who does. Yudhishthira, a yoga teacher, trainer, and therapist. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Jim.
And I would, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're getting ready to talk about the second chakra.
We are.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we are talking about the second chakra. It has a Sanskrit name like everything else in yoga. It's called Swadhisthana.
Swadhisthana.
And Swa, that first part, Swa, is self. And the second chakra, I asked you to be part of this conversation because the second chakra is one that is oftentimes really overemphasized in terms of sexuality. And it's not that that's wrong at all. In fact, I want to sort of begin by pointing out or reminding you and your audience that the physical form that we are in, the physical organs we possess, the energies that we feel from the result of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems connected to our endocrine system, these driving forces are powerful.
Yes.
And the second chakra is a powerful chakra. And it is helpful to go back and remember that from a yogi point of view, here's how things work, is that there is a soul, an Atman, in the or a Jivan in the astral world, and that in the material world there is a joining together of an egg and a sperm. That joining together, no matter how it occurs, is a spark that draws certain souls. And according to Yogananda, there's a little bit of a competition here, that there's a race to get there.
Wow.
Because that situation, those people, that family is the right situation for that soul to be reincarnated.
Okay.
All right. And so and at that point, you then have the soul whose karma may be such. There's a lot of talk about, a lot of angry conversations in our country about abortion and women's rights, rightfully so. But it may very well be that the karma needed by that soul does not end in a successful birth. But that the first thing that begins to be built within that.
Very interesting. Sorry. I was
The
just
first thing that
reflecting.
the first thing that becomes built in the human body is from that sperm and egg uniting after you get through the first stages of, cell reproduction. When you get to the stage of a zygote, what you end up with is the very beginning of the central nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first part that forms is at the medulla.
Right.
And then everything else begins to continue. So you get a spinal cord,
right.
the original, it's not vestiges, it's the beginnings of a brain. But I mean, that's what forms first. But that formation comes from a pattern that is really similar to what a blueprint or a CAD drawing would represent to a building.
Right.
All right. It's not a physical thing, but it is a diagram of what's going to be built.
Mm-hmm.
And so when it comes to the first chakra, there's a lot of people who, and we talked about this last week, there's a lot of people who are stuck in their first chakra. They are unwilling to listen to other people's opinions. They are unwilling to change. Fixed routine is very important to them. Whereas when the energy of the first chakra is moving upward, it joins forces with that second chakra. So what you end up with is the positive first chakra, which is like loyalty to your friends, loyalty to what you believe in, but a willingness to change. And when you come up to chakra number 2, the quality of that chakra, the elemental quality, is that of water.
Mm-hmm.
Water is fluid. It
Yes.
flows.
Right.
It conforms to the shape
Right.
of whatever it's in.
Whatever vessel it is, holding it. Yes.
Or if it's moving through a stream, it flows around the rocks.
Right.
And that is the good side of the second chakra, is that it is fluid. There, people who are highly creative oftentimes have a lot of energy that originates in this second chakra. But here's where things can go wrong. And here where yogis oftentimes go so far overboard, in my opinion. Now, I'm coming from a Western culture, so I've sort of corrected the Western culture side of things, which is that the energy in the second chakra, if it's outwardly expressed, one big way it comes out is in terms of over sensuality.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I are both older white guys.
Mm-hmm.
We have a particular view of the world. Our bodies are at a particular stage. But nonetheless, I mean, if for people who are our age or even younger, especially, there is a powerful drive that originates from the center, the second chakra.
I can remember it.
And that's sort of the reality. But the memory is a very strong memory.
Yes.
Yeah. And we all know what that feels like. And the secret with working with the second chakra is no different than any of the others. Can we use and cooperate with the positive qualities of that chakra?
Right.
Now, there is no doubt that when it comes to sexuality, that this chakra has a very powerful role to play. I gave you an image,
Yes.
of the human nervous system. If you can put it up for just 1 second, I want to point out one thing.
Sure.
All right. Again, the physical part of our body, or the physical part of who we are, the body we're in, originates in the structure of the spinal cord and the brain. The nerves that go out from the spinal cord and into the body go into, and so you can, I don't know if you can see it on here. Does my pointer even show up? But down here in the sacral center, you have nerves that go to the reproductive organs and to the bladder, right? And that those are the energies that go out from the center into the body. So you can take that down
Okay.
right now. All right.
I was studying it. Sorry. It wasn't.
My point is only to say that there is a physical reality, but we don't want to start with a physical reality and lay that on top of the chakra. The chakra is like the second chakra is so amazing, but it needs to be grounded
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise water will just go anywhere. Water will fly all over the place. But if it's funneled, if it's focused, it can then have a great power, which is to say,
Is it sort of like building an aqueduct?
well, an aqueduct would actually be a great image of it, because that aqueduct is like the main pathway of the energy spine moving upward. What I was actually thinking of was there are these devices. This is getting perhaps slightly off topic, but if you have people who are creating one of a kind pieces of metal, they start with a sheet of metal, they put it into a water bath with a lot of sand in it. And then they have a computer hooked up to it. And the combination of sand, earth, and water, second chakra, can create anything. You can create a special one-of-a-kind hood ornament or a grill on a car
Mm-hmm.
or a piece of artwork, and it's designed off of a computer. It's brought into reality by that combination of sand or earth and water. So you have chakra number 1 and 2.
Right. It's fascinating.
It is. And you end up with this amazingly one of a kind reality, which is true for us as well.
Yeah.
That each of us, when it comes time to enter into a new body, we're looking for exactly that situation that will help us to work through our karma, which in the case of second chakra may mean realizing that I'm wasting all of my energy in sexual pursuits. Now, that's a hard claim to make to a 22-year-old man.
Yes.
All right. No, it really is.
Yeah.
So, is any of this making sense at all?
Yeah, and I two things was that I had this image of sperm racing to the ovum, and that I understood, but the karma souls in a race to get to that. Once that spark fires, it attracts the one of my questions was does the right karma always win?
Oh, it's a great question, and I would say no, that it may not, because again, everything I share is based on this guy, Yogananda,
right?
And his teachings.
Biography of a yogi, yes.
Yeah, and his teachings were pure yoga, but in a modern sense. And what I mean by that is that he lived in the 20th century. He was he knew it was so amazing. Without being a scholar or a physicist, he was very tuned in to quantum mechanics and quantum physics.
That doesn't surprise me.
It was just eerie that some of his writings at a time, this is when Heisenberg and Schrodinger and Einstein, when these really great minds were beginning to come up to the realization that everything changes when you get to the subatomic level.
Right.
The rules of physics no longer apply.
Exactly.
And Yogananda knew that because he was working from the bigger picture. If you go down small enough, you start getting into matters of like entanglement of electrons or photons or subatomic particles. How does entanglement take place? It takes place because there is a single field of consciousness that permeates everything. And if you begin there and come back, you work your way into that same intersection of the physical world and the energy world. And so it is completely reasonable from my perspective that you might have two souls in a race, quite literally. Sometimes that race culminates in both of them arriving at the same time. And that means what?
Twins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet, an interesting thing about, we used to think that the DNA of identical twins, where you have one zygote that divides into two, we used to think that the DNA was exactly the same for the two.
Mm-hmm.
That was only because we didn't have the capacity to measure, to map out the entire genome.
Right.
Now,
until very recently, right?
Yes. Now there is an apparent distinction between when that zygote divides, immediately or after as many as 13 days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with, and so if it happens immediately, you get a lot of change between the two individuals. And it can be seen in DNA. And so all of this comes down
Who would have thought
again.
it was the opposite? That's so
No,
interesting to me.
no,
Yeah.
the longer the longer they're paired up,
Oh, of course.
the more
I see now.
they
Yeah.
tend to have fewer divergences in genetically speaking.
Okay.
But when it comes to the energies behind all this, you know, the second chakra is powerful,
Hmm.
and it can be a powerful force that, you know, great yogis have always, and I'm talking about great yogis, by that I mean those people really wanting to go hardcore into harnessing their energies.
Right.
I'm thinking about a couple of Russian mystics that I've mentioned before, Gurdjieff and Uspensky in particular. You read about those guys. They were doing crazy things, and some yogis did them as well, in terms of putting ice around their genitalia in order to cool down that energy, literally in that region, in order for them to be able to pull that energy up
Right.
and use it for higher purposes.
Right. Sure.
So
I get the point. I don't think I would get into the practice, but I understand what you're saying. And
yeah,
and one of these things that occurs to me at the time is that, you know, we can make the mistake, I think, of repressing or suppressing rather than elevating.
and so the answer does not lie in simply unchecked outward moving of energy from this second chakra.
Right.
There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of humor in this, by the way.
Yes.
There can be, anyway.
I need Rick.
If you were old enough to remember a show called Cheers.
Yes, of course.
All
Yeah,
right.
right. Everyone
Well,
knows your name.
The main character, Sam,
Mm-hmm.
he was addicted to sex.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this one particular episode where he goes to a 12-step meeting for sex addicts.
Uh-huh.
And of course, in that, he finds a woman that he's deeply attracted to, and that's where the humor comes in.
Of course, yes. Right.
And but for most of us, this idea is either that we have to let it all go or suppress it, and that is not the goal.
Right.
All of yoga, including hatha yoga, the yoga postures, will move energy inward and upward. And so that when you take these first two chakras, earth and water, loyalty and creativity, and you begin to move them upward, they're a powerful ally to the upper chakras as well.
Yes, you can see that clearly, right?
And so I wanted to just to refer to some of the things I mentioned last week about chakra number 1. All right, and that is that each of the chakras, when you are deep in meditation, that it's possible to actually hear the sound. And it's not an external sound, it's an internal sound. We don't hear it with the tympanic membrane in our ears, right, vibrating, but we hear it nonetheless in this region, mostly in the right ear. But the first chakra has a sound of like a bumblebee or a motor running. The second chakra has a sound of crickets, like heard in the distance, or of a water flowing over rocks.
Okay, right.
That's the sound of the second chakra. When we see the second chakra, the color can sometimes be one, like in the spectrum, which would be orange.
Right.
But it also has, anyway, it doesn't matter. We don't have to go further into it. But I do want to say that these chakras have a reality, both as a color that can be seen, a sound that can be heard, and they also relate to, I mentioned the astrology, and chakra number 2 relates to Sagittarius and Pisces.
Water, Pisces, I get.
There you go, exactly. So you can see the connection there.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think any questions, anything at all?
Well, it's fascinating to me to think about the race of the souls, and And it's also one of the things that I think in terms of, because I think of myself as a creative person, and and this expression unchecked has, especially when I was young, caused difficulties in my life through desire and
Yep.
want. And unchecked desire is not a pleasant human experience. And so I would be thinking of this, and I think what I'm modifying my thinking of is, instead of controlling, is the elevation aspect of it. And
Yep.
to not think in terms of enemies and negativities as allies and integration, because when you can merge the earth with the water, with the first chakra with the second chakra, and get the best of both worlds, this is the aim. This is the goal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is right.
You have absolutely have it. And again, the idea of cooperation is an important thing. There is this book I've mentioned, the Mahabharata,
Yes.
and I would even plug this little book, which is brand new, called The Hidden Story of the Mahabharata. And it just came out. I'm sure it's available on Amazon. The Hidden Story of the Mahabharata. And it is really the story about these 5 brothers. And the 5 brothers are representations of these 5 chakras. And when it comes to this matter of the second chakra, addiction of any type is always a second chakra issue.
Yes.
Always. And it's always about energy going out through the second chakra. Desires, you mentioned it. That's exactly it right there.
Right.
This is where we feel such strong desires. I know it comes up into the heart, but that desire can come up as well. And then the heart is ready to totally go out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are not so much desires when it comes to addiction as compulsions.
Yep. And that's exactly it. I shared with you, I think not long ago, that I had dreams that persisted 35 years after my last drink.
Right.
And so I finally went to a sound and energy healer, and she, through the use of sound, crystal bowls, gongs, and particular lights and crystals, I have not had a dream about addiction since.
And this is my version of contempt prior to investigation, because if you told me about gongs and crystals and lights and all that stuff, I would have just said nonsense. But when you have the direct experience, then you can no longer deny it.
Nope. And I was definitely in contempt before I went there. But,
well,
but I had no choice.
For me.
I'd been living with these dreams for over 30 years.
It's an amazing story, Yudhisthira. It really is. Yeah. And it is aspirational. And I do hope that message gets out there.
Good.
There are ways that these things, which are really plaguing you, can be addressed, and not necessarily through the traditional ways that we have been taught in a science and medical orientation in the Western world.
I have actually worked with people suffering from addictions, and their addiction was just sort of like the remainder, they're sort of the last vestiges of an addiction. And through yoga, through asana practice, meditation, other techniques like chanting the chakras, that they were able to successfully make that final step out of addiction. But those people are relatively few. Most of us require something more structured.
Well, perhaps we're all going to find our own way.
Yes.
And I appreciate this wonderful insight that you've granted us again. I feel blessed to have been with you. And I want to tell you that I can't wait until we talk about the third chakra. We're going to get fire into this.
It's a big one. Yep.
Thank you again, and
All right.
blessings to you.
Blessings, my friend.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, now we have just covered a lot of ground there, but I wanted to tell you that if there's something that you want to see, like he mentioned, like our last show, the first chakra, well, you can go to AirU TV. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. It's a website that contains all of the previous videos. And so you can check it out. And if you want to contact us, info@airu.tv is the way to do it. And if you have questions you want answered, I could always ask them and get a straight answer for you. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for participating, and have a blessed week. Welcome to the final segment of Calm Down. And I want to introduce to you, my loyal listeners and viewers, Divya Lovewise, that wise yogi. And I would like you, at the end of every show, I'm a little bit agitated and worked up and all that kind of stuff. And I was wondering if there's something that you could do to calm me down. Could you just say goodbye to us in any way that you see fit?
Sure, I would love to.
I will take off and let you do that. Thanks again.
Okay. Well, bring yourself into a comfortable seated position, feeling your feet on the floor and letting your hands rest in your lap. Palms up or palms down is a great way to start bringing yourself back into center and focus with your own divine energy and letting go of anything that might have wanted to stick to us throughout the day that may be energy we don't want to carry throughout the day. So having this basic position, feeling grounded, even closing your eyes and taking a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one of the ways we can bring ourselves back to center is observing with our senses what we can feel, the temperature of the air in the room, observing any sounds that you hear. Noticing any smells in the air. And then bring your awareness to your breath. As though you're watching it from the inside out. Watching the inhale wash into the body. And watching the exhale wash out of the body. Just like the waves of the ocean as they wash onto the shore. And if you find your mind still wandering, you can even place one hand on your lower belly and one hand on your heart so that you can feel with your hands this breath washing in and washing out. And with your mind's eye, visualize this inhalation and exhalation as an internal shower, clearing away your energy so that it's refreshed, it's rejuvenated, and it's restored. Releasing your hands into your lap, just give yourself a few seconds of pause in this return to peace, enjoying it. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes, wiggling your fingers and your toes, feeling grounded in your body, grounded in the best part of yourself, and you can go out into the world and carry that best part in the forefront of your mind and your heart.